Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am recording this on Sunday, July 20th, in the year 2025, from very beautiful Escazú, Costa Rica, where it has been sunny for most of the weekend, if you can believe it, during rainy season. But today is particularly beautiful, and I just got back from a little walk, so I'm here to happily, in my refreshed state, give you the week ahead in astrology. Let's talk about Mercury retrograde for a moment, shall we? Mercury went retrograde Thursday evening in this region of the world. It was 10:45 p.m. here by me. And I can tell you that on Wednesday and Thursday, I was not myself. Now, Mercury went retrograde at 15 degrees Leo, which is the cardinal axis. Other things that have been hanging around the cardinal axis are Neptune and Saturn. So they went over the cardinal axis recently, and they're very close to the cardinal axis, 1 and 2 degrees of Aries. So I believe that this whole Mercury retrograde stationing on the cardinal axis triggered Saturn and Neptune, because this was not an average experience of Mercury going retrograde. It wasn't like, oh yeah, Mercury's going retrograde. I woke up in not a good state, both Wednesday morning and Thursday morning. And so I had to sort out my emotions, my feelings, my nervous system between Wednesday and Thursday. This was very upsetting because, you think you're going to get up and you're going to get things done and you're going to move through your day. And of course, I always meditate every day and I work through emotional things anyway, because that's who I am and what I do. And it helps me bring things to light for other people. But when it affects me like this, I have to stop and say, okay, how much of this is mine and how much of this belongs to the collective unconscious? Because I'm very sensitive and I pick those things up. So when I woke up on Wednesday morning and I'm walking into my living room and I say to myself, I feel lost. And I'm not actually lost. And my life is very good and I shouldn't feel lost. There may be a few things with Pluto and my sun that might provoke something like that. But I said, no. This is not me. This is not me. And I tested with my pendulum, and sure enough, most of the energy belonged to the collective. So I had to do some collective clearing on that with my pendulum and just clear out the energy that was hanging around me. Wednesday night, I was so exhausted that I just, at 8 o'clock, I just said, that's it, I'm done. I shut the lights off. I got to bed by 8:30. And although it took me a little while to go to sleep, I didn't get out of bed until 8:30 Thursday morning. So I was in bed for 12 hours. And again, this is not like me. And irritable, and Thursday feeling sort of a roller coaster of what felt like panic and then not. And so I don't know how many of you experienced stuff like this during Mercury retrograde. Many of the people around me did not have that. My one neighbor friend is telling me she was exhausted. A couple people said to me they're exhausted. I have one of my friends in Houston said, I'm exhausted and everybody I'm talking to is exhausted. And so I think that it was really a complicated Mercury retrograde. I finally sorted through my stuff on Thursday and had a real breakthrough at the very moment that Mercury went retrograde, the very moment. And I discovered some very important unconscious things for myself. So this was powerful. When energy surges through you powerfully, if you are feeling all of a sudden, out of nowhere, things like panic, anxiety, anxiousness, and you're not like that. We go through phases. But if there's a day where you feel this and you don't do this, the first thing is question how much of it is yours and how much is the collective. And if you're not someone sensitive who does pick up on collective energies like I am, then it's yours. And then you have to follow the energy. You have to sit with the energy, talk with yourself, contemplate, and connect with what is going on. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse and it's going to plague your day. And so I would think that anyone who's feeling like this would be ripe for a breakthrough of information, because it's Mercury, about themselves, their lives, or whatever, or just even the recognition that this is not my energy, this is somebody else's, belongs to the collective. it depends on who you are, what you do. Somebody like me who's dealing with collective energies and reading them so I can present them to my astro darlings, I have to say I'm going to pick up on that stuff. And so I have to clear my field. And thank you to experts like Raymond Grace, who is like the master of the pendulum. He's like telling you to clear astrological influences with your pendulum every day, really, he says. But he's not an astrologer, and he doesn't have to report back to everyone about it. So, but I can tell you, if you felt off, you are not alone. I think this was a particularly difficult station. I think it's because it was on the cardinal axis, which then is, again, is the world axis, triggers the collective, triggers everything that's going on in the world and the news and everything, and just keeps us in a spiral or a loop of some very intense energies that are connected to the world and the events. The thing to do is really try to step back from that, be with yourself, contemplate how much of it is yours. And if it's a lot of it's yours, then you sit with yourself and journal or do what I do, meditate and do different things. Take your pendulum, talk with yourself, and figure out what exactly is going on. The moment I made my breakthrough as Mercury was turning retrograde, I can tell you the energy subsided. I felt much better. I felt inflamed, in my body and my brain and everything, and it just all calmed down, just as I recognized some certain things. So these planetary energies are keys to our own unconscious drives, our own things that we're sorting out, working out, things we are progressing through and moving to the next level of our lives. And so this is very important to work with this energy, right? So, okay. On to the week, lots of stuff. And, Mercury's going to be retrograde till about August 11th. But this week, we start the sign of Leo. Leo begins this week. It begins on Tuesday, the 22nd. The sun enters Leo 9:29 a.m. Eastern Time. And Leo is where the sun belongs, and the sun likes to be in Leo. So it's sunny, it's gregarious, it's fiery, it's expansive. It's generally a good time of year because this is when the sun enters its own sign, and it feels good and fiery and vital, And so right after the sun enters Leo at 9:29 a.m. on Tuesday morning in the Eastern Time Zone, it will have 2 days in the sign of Leo, and it will make a new moon with the moon. So the moon is going into Cancer Tuesday morning also at 8:26 a.m. So an hour later, the sun changes signs, the moon changes signs, but to Cancer. Once it's finished with Cancer, the moon is going to move into Leo, and it is going to make this opposition with Pluto. So the sun and the moon are connecting together as they always do at a new moon, and they will oppose Pluto. And that opposition is a little complicated because, well, not really, but what's going to happen is the new moon occurs at 2 degrees Leo on Thursday the 24th in this region of the world, and that new moon is 3:11 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday. What's then going to happen is the moon is going to, because it moves faster, going to oppose Pluto right away, at not even an hour later, 4 p.m. And then the sun will oppose Pluto in the wee hours of Friday morning, the 25th, 2:33 a.m. So not even 12 hours later, or 10 and a half hours later, the sun, which moves slower than the moon, is going to oppose Pluto. So this is intense. Now, every time we have a new moon, it's a great time for new cycles and new beginnings. Last new moon was last month, and it was the end of June, and it was when the new moon met with Jupiter. So it met with Jupiter in Cancer. So the sun and the moon met with Jupiter in Cancer. And that was powerful because it was powerfully open and, a lot of good energy flowing at that time. Now, the moon is ruler of Cancer, and Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So we like this. The moon is in its own sign, making a new moon with Jupiter. All so good. At the end of June, we had this. Now this new moon, this is the next new moon, and it's the sun's turn to say, hey, this new moon belongs to me because it's my sign, and it's opposite Pluto, which is not Jupiter. And so this is a very powerful new moon. Now, we didn't have the new moon so close to Pluto last year. It may have been in the vicinity. I'd have to go back and look at the exact degree, but this is very close to Pluto. This is minutes away from Pluto. And so there is the element of transformation and empowerment in this new moon. And since it's an opposition, it's not a conjunction like we had back in the Cancer moment, back at the end of June. It's a new moon opposite Pluto. And so Pluto, there it is, the powerhouse it is in Aquarius, newly in Aquarius, not even fully in Aquarius for a year yet. It's a while before it's a year. But that sun and moon are going to oppose Pluto. The moon opposes every month. And the sun was going to do this anyway every year. But the new moon, the two of them together, this is particularly intense. And any new energies that we are stepping forward into in the sign of Leo, which is can be very creative, the experience of that energy is met with transformation, empowerment, the experience of owning your power, the experience of feeling the empowerment, and the feeling of what it means to transform. Now, if you really have a transformative moment and things turn around, that's when you get empowered. So let me go back to my Thursday night when I was really suffering Thursday, and when I sat with myself and had my intuitive experience and understanding of what I was grappling with, then it transformed my day, my world, my life, and was like, oh my God, that's what this is. It was a revelation. It was a breakthrough. It was an epiphany. But in that moment, it's transformative, and my power came back. So if you allow Pluto to do its work and allow the transformative energies to reach you during this new moon, you will probably have some sort of breakthrough. And that's ideal for what we're doing right now, this work that we're doing when we have this new moon. It can be that you project something onto someone else because it's an opposition, and you can, it's not the full moon opposition, it's the new moon with an opposition to Pluto, and there could be power struggles anywhere in your life. Let's try not to do that. Let's try to own our power, not project onto someone, not to project a lack of power so that it renders us powerless or something, or give our power away. This is an aspect that we could easily give our power away and not say, hey, I need to stop this and I need to be present for myself, right? So we hope that this is something that it is easily recognized by each of us. So we can say, yes, this is powerful for me. I get it. I am going to really use this wisely and have a very profound experience with this and transform something in my life that I want to transform so I can get to the other side of this and get something, wonderful rolling in my life. After all, that's what Pluto does for us. It gives us the power to transform and change things that maybe we didn't have the energy to change before. So that's why we like Pluto. Now, this is not happening in a vacuum. Of course, astrology never does. The sun is in Leo. The sun is going into Leo, and it's going to be early Leo. And that means it's talking to the guys that just went into Aries recently. Like I said before, early in the cardinal axis, close to the cardinal axis, that would be Saturn and Neptune. And the sun making an aspect to Saturn and Neptune, and the moon, the new moon, making an aspect to Saturn and Neptune. That is a trine, and that's open, flowing, creative, exciting. So this is a very powerful new moon. And it isn't just that this is happening. They are really going to give us some really powerful energies as it moves through the day. So the sun and the moon are making their aspects to Saturn and Neptune as they roll towards that new moon together and then oppose Pluto. But also, remember, Uranus just went into Gemini, and the sun will sextile Uranus, another smooth flowing aspect, on Tuesday, not long after it goes in to the sign of Leo. It's, 10 hours late, 12 hours later or so, 10 hours later. But it's later that night. Actually, it's probably more than that. Yeah, it's like 14 hours later or something. And it's, wee hours of the AM on Wednesday in the Eastern time zone. Sun sextile Uranus. So that's powerful. And then we move into, so all the outer planets are involved in this. Smoothly, for the most part, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus. Smoothly. The opposition is to Pluto in Aquarius. So there's a lot of rich information and energy here in this new moon. It's got lots of stories to tell. It's got stories of empowerment. It's got stories of transformation. It's got stories of structure from Saturn and dreams from Neptune and inspiration from Neptune and Uranus. There's lots going on here. We're going to feel this. I bet we're going to start feeling this on Tuesday as soon as the sun enters Leo. Once we get moving through this energy this week, it's going to really be the big pronouncement of the week. Yeah, the sun is entering a new sign and its own sign, but once it moves in to connect with the moon, and then we have all of the outer planets talking to this new moon at the same time, Thursday's the big day of the week. So this is very powerful. It is a very powerful new moon. I highly suggest you sit down with yourself, contemplate what you want to bring into your world under this, and do some sort of ritual, whether it's a meditation, whether it's lighting a candle, whether it's doing a space cleanse, whatever it is. Set your intention. How do I want this to go this next month? How do I want this to step forward as this new moon enlightens me to this powerfulness that I have? Don't give in to something that's powerless. Okay? Walk through this and have some sort of breakthrough revelation. The energies are there to support that. If you're feeling tension and stress, then you have to sit down, like I did last week, and ask yourself where it's coming from and what area of your life is giving you this vibe. What area of your life requires your attention, and to move through this so that you can really feel that you're getting the benefit of this new moon and how wonderful this experience is for you. So it's really not to be underestimated. There's very powerful energy coming towards us this week, and I really want everyone to take advantage of it, right? So please do that. One of the other things that's happening this week is that Venus and Mars are squaring each other. So Venus is in Gemini and Mars is in Virgo, and this is happening on Wednesday the 23rd at 4:23 a.m. Eastern Time. Now this is interesting for a variety of reasons. One of the big reasons is that as I sit here with my chart in front of me, Mars is at the South Node. Mars is at 19 degrees, 35 minutes of Virgo, and right now the South Node is 19 degrees, 39 minutes of Virgo. So that's 4 minutes away. So this is it. I mean, it's been there for a week. This is also something that adds to tension, but I want you to pay close attention to this for a lot of reasons. Now, as I sit here, it's interesting because Mars will move a couple of degrees when it gets there on Wednesday. Mars will already be at 21. Venus will be at 21. But Venus and Mars are already talking to each other because Venus is at 18 Gemini, right? So now Venus and Mars are talking to each other. What is that? Well, first of all, this is the polarities. This is the masculine and the feminine polarities. I'm not saying gender, I'm saying polarities. I'm saying Mars being the masculine polarity, Venus being the feminine polarity. And this is where we reach to go forward in something that's very Marsy, and then we step back to receive. That's very Venusian. And so they're immutable signs, so they are flexible. But there's a little bit of a kerfuffle between Mars and Venus, meaning that we're having a moment of, well, when do I step forward and when to assert, and when do I step back and receive and be a little bit passive here? When do I speak up? Both of these are ruled by Mercury. Okay, so this is we're getting into it here. Both of them are being ruled by Mercury now because Venus and Mars are in Mercury's signs. Virgo for Mars and Gemini for Venus. And Mercury is retrograde. So there's a lot of dialogue going on here because Mars and Venus are talking to each other in a stressful manner, but they are being ruled by somebody who's in retrograde. So they are disposed of. Mars and Venus are, we say in astrology, disposed of Mercury, because we're looking at their sign where they are as the motorcycles go by. And and when they are disposed of by Mercury, we have to look at Mercury's dynamic right now, which is retrograde. So anything that seems, the dynamics in our relationships with people, with colleagues, with family members, anybody, because these are relationship inner planets, it could very well be some kind of kerfuffle between Mars and Venus because Mercury's retrograde. This could be misunderstandings. So we want to avoid as many misunderstandings as possible. So we have to think about our words and think before we speak, and maybe write things down if we have to, and say it very pleasantly and politely, not with aplomb or not with I know the answer to this and you don't, not, no confrontations. Let's just try to be reasonable with one another this week. Yes? And so, this is all happening while our friends, the sun and the moon, are getting ready to have their new moon experience with opposite Pluto. So, Venus and Mars, like I said, they're already squaring each other. They're going to be exact on Wednesday, like I said, and they'll still be around each other on Thursday when all that business is going on. So we have a little bit of tensions and a lot of energy flying around, a lot of communicative energy flying around as we get through this week. Now, as I'm speaking to you, the moon is in Gemini, and the moon will conjunct Venus tomorrow at 2:23 p.m. Eastern Time, and then about an hour and a half later, square Mars. So the moon is getting its 2 cents in here, the moon who's in Gemini and also ruled by a retrograde Mercury. And so I think we have to be really careful about who we, are dealing with, what we're saying to one another, how we're presenting ourselves. Perhaps the truth will come forward in many ways on many levels this week. And so listen for the truth and listen. Please listen. Make sure that you are listening deeply to dialogue, to yourself, to the messages you get from your body, because Mars is in Virgo, and to the messages you get from your surrounding environment, because Venus is in Gemini. So who's saying what to you? And so tomorrow, the moon is going to come over these guys and trigger them. And there's another extra special surprise in this. So remember I said Mars is at the South Node. That's how I started this conversation. Mars is at the South Node. Okay, so what do we know about the South Node? We know that old habits die hard. We get stuck in a spiral, in a vortex. We get stuck in old stories with the South Node, and we reach for the familiar and the safe. Mars is really triggering that. Mars is telling you, no, you need to be safe. No, and you're hearing those dialogues that you've had where your parents or your teachers or whoever who controlled your life when you were a kid said things, because the South Node has a lot to do with the past, said things to you about how you should, because this is Virgo. So it's all, there could be judgment. You could be judging yourself. You could be judging others. Pay attention, again, listen to what dynamics are passing through your field right now. You might really be clinging to some old structure that is outmoded. That is Mars in Virgo on the South Node, where we're supposed to be focusing, more or less, on the North Node in Pisces. Now, I say supposed to be. You're always vacillating between South Node and North Node. But the North Node says trust, and the South Node says, I don't know how to do that. I have to pick this apart and nitpick it and be critical and feel like I'm scratching things that I know. And you're scratching, because really you just have to let go and trust with the North Node in Pisces. And you have to go in the direction of your faith. You have to go in the direction of your divinity. You have to go into the direction of what you can trust and what you know you can trust in your life. And if you start scratching at the door of Virgo with Mars at the South Node, you're going to run into patterns that just repeat themselves and pull you back into some place of lack of empowerment. This week, there's a lot about empowerment this week, okay? So have faith when you feel you can't. Have trust in something that you don't really understand, but you've got to do it. This is the path out of this. The path out of this is trust. It's the path out of this is not overthinking anything, because all that Gemini and all that Virgo want to overthink things. You have to just silence the brain, silence the mind, and go for what you trust, okay? While the Mars South Node arrangement is happening, remember I said Venus is already squaring Mars. Venus is squaring the nodes. That means that tomorrow, when the moon joins Venus and squares Mars, the moon is squaring the nodes. The moon does this every month. It does it a couple times a month. It squares the nodes from one end, squares the nodes from another end. But it is tomorrow squaring the nodes with Venus, squaring Mars. So that means that the midpoint of the nodal axis contains Venus and the moon tomorrow. And Venus will be there this week. So that means you're going to be pulled in all sorts of directions this week. You're going to be pulled one way, pulled in another way. What should I do? Trust your intuition on this. Make up your mind in the direction of your intuition and what is correct, as opposed to what is just something you're making out of a panic and familiarity, right? I made a post the other day, the no panic decisions vow. And it's on Instagram, and I recommend you take a look at it. And it's a post that I made it into a story, and maybe I'll post it as a story again this week, because this is really about what's going on right now with this Venus, this Mars, this North and South Node, the moon joining them, and making decisions from a place that is not about panic, making decisions do not make decisions from fear, frenzy, or the ache to escape discomfort. That's this Mars at the South Node. So go read my post. This is really what we have to embody right now. We have to embody the courage to follow our intuition and follow the path of, in some cases, healing, and the path of trust and faith and the divinity within us. And whatever we're feeling as opposed to what we're thinking, okay? Now, you'll know in these moments, because if it feels like, this feels wrong, I don't feel like I should do this, but it's the only thing I know how to do because I don't know how to do anything else, just kind of flip it and say, what would happen if I really trusted my gut on this and trusted my ability to move forward in a different direction than the old familiar place that's provoking me? And it can really be a provoking thing right now. So I really recommend looking at, how this, if you have a decision to make this week, do not make decisions out of panic. Do not take action out of panic. Do not, Mars at the South Node is definitely panic. Do not do that. Take your time with this. Trust yourself. Take some breaths, go for a walk, meditate, do what you need to do, but do not reach for the automatic gut feeling reaction and it may not be a big deal. It may be an important decision, or maybe it won't be, depending on your chart. If you got something at 19 Pisces and 19 Virgo, you might feel that, or 19 Gemini, 19 Sagittarius, you might really be feeling all of this right now. A personal planet at one of those places, the moon, the sun, Venus, generationally, like if you've got Uranus someplace like in Sagittarius or something, or Neptune, Pluto, I wouldn't say it's necessarily going to trigger you that much because it's generational planets. But I would say if you've got personal planets there in that loop, well then, hey, this could be something you're going to feel. And if you don't have a personal planet there, then you might feel it anyway, just because you might have to make some sort of decision. You may not be that provoked, but you may need to ride something through and stick with your intuition on this. So this is the other important thing that's going on this week, okay, in addition to the new moon opposite Pluto. And I've been doing some looking at Uranus and Pluto. And as you know, I talked about how Uranus and Pluto are going to be trining each other. And remember what happened if you were into astrology and you knew astrology between the year 2012 and the year 2016. They were squaring one another. And that was a challenging aspect. And now here we are a bunch of years later where they are going to trine one another, which is a very lovely flowing aspect. Now, Pluto is at 2 degrees of Aquarius and Uranus is at 0 degrees of Gemini. They are not exact, but they are doing it. This is a trine. And if, like I always say, if you have a baby and they have a chart, you have a baby now, they are going to have these two planets. I would look at it as an astrologer, say, yeah, this is a trine. This is a trine. So yes, they are talking to one another. And they are going to get as close to a trine as about 7 minutes of longitude with each other. So that's going to be the end of August into September. So that is a trine, folks. And even though the exactitude is going to happen next year in June, the first one, there's going to be 5 exact trines between Uranus and Pluto. So this is a big pattern we have coming up. Okay, over the next several years, the exactitude is going to be from 2026 to 2028. It's going to be within reason that we're feeling it from right now until 2029. And so like the square back in the years, 2012 or so, it was really, it started strongly 2012 to 2015. And then, when I look back at 2016, because, I first came to Costa Rica and I moved here in 2016, there was definitely a Uranus-Pluto square. It's not like I can say, well, that wasn't happening then. What was it? No. So if you are like me, and I've said this before, if you're like me, born in the 60s with that Uranus-Pluto conjunction, or another aspect that was closely aligned to that between those two planets, maybe you were born during the sextile, you have kids born during the square, you're going to feel this. You're going to feel this trine, and it's going to say, okay, where are we now relative to where we were, say, 10 years ago? And what's this look like? What does it look like for us? So I want you to pay attention, because now, this is starting now. I mean, this is something profound. And they are a powerhouse together. But this is one of the lovelier aspects that we're going to have with them, as opposed to the square, which was really intense and life-changing, certainly for many people, including myself, obviously. The other day, Friday morning, there were 2 earthquakes, and they're tremors. They're not like, oh my God, are you okay? People always ask, oh my God, are you okay? And my sister will say, I was upset. And no, it's, thankfully they are not destructive earthquakes. They are shaking things that shake, the ground. So the Friday morning, there was an earthquake that I've slept through it, so it couldn't have been that big of a deal, right? I slept through it. And an hour later it was like 5 a.m., 10 to 5, and then my cat came in an hour later and she was like all agitated and walking all over me. So she probably felt it. And then we went back to sleep. And then like a while later, we both got startled and I sat up in bed because I thought something was rattling. I thought one of the cats was jumping on the lattice work on my bedroom window outside on the patio, but it was not a cat. It was an earth tremor. So I should say tremor because rather than earthquake, but we are so used to them, we just call them earthquakes. And so there was an earthquake again Friday morning. So right after Mercury went retrograde, there was an earthquake here. So there were, a few hours later, we had earthquakes. Yeah, and we'll reconvene next Sunday. But in the meantime, if you'd like to have a session with me, certainly to sort all this out, so much astrology going on, please connect with me, thegoldenastrologer.com, click book online. You will get a session with me. You can set up a session with me. And you can have a Reiki session with me, and we can clear your field of all the static and all the energy. And as opposed to astrology, if you just want to talk about it, great. If you just want to bask in the clearing of the energy, Reiki. It's not that typical Reiki where I would put my hands on you. We're doing it remotely, and I'm like clearing your field, and it's, I think, very powerful. And I do get a lot of like visionary things through the session that I come back to tell you when we're finished. There's also expansion mentoring if you'd like to work with me, and we clear things and use my tools on a regular basis, the NLP tools, the astrology tools, but really more the NLP tools, the clearing tools, the various tools we can to bring you to the next level of your life, and that could be very exciting. So that's 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months with me, and you can email me about that, info@thegoldenastrologer.com or deb@debmcbride.com. And I'm on Instagram, The Golden Astrologer. Look at the post I made the other day about the no panic decisions vow, and use that this week because this is important, especially this week. So I thank you for listening. Gratitude to each and every one of you. Much love, hugs, kisses, all the good things to all of you. Much gratitude. And I will see you on the internet during the week. And next Sunday, I'll be back here on the Golden Astrologer Podcast. Thank you for listening.